What's up, trolls? Today we're at maximum effort. And this is about the point that maximum effort broke me. Am I being dramatic? Probably, but let me explain. So I first set out to paint a piece that would be the very best model I've ever painted. And yes, this looks pretty good, but does it look this good? No, not at all. So this is a Dante painted by Richard Gray, who is, in my opinion, one of the best miniature painters ever. So now you can probably see where this is going. So at this point, I'd been working on the model for, I would say, about 5 hours. And for me, this is a pretty significant amount of time. I've literally painted whole units in 5 hours. Now, I know on some level that this is just part of the gig, but I just never really experienced it to this degree. So here I am at a crossroads. Do I knuckle down and keep going? Or do I rage quit the whole thing? If you guessed rage quit, you were right. So I moved on to other projects and came back to the model with a fresh set of eyes and started to maybe analyze where I went wrong, how I could do better, and I did want to really finish the model. So where did I go wrong? I'll describe that at length in a second, but before I do, I also had a few things that derailed this video. So it seemed like every part of this project was cursed or just doomed for failure. Biggest issue is a lot of video I took just wasn't suited to show anything. It seemed to be out of focus or not relevant to the task at hand. So bear with me as I show what video I have. So where did I go wrong? Well, first up, I needed to take a harder look at my source material and make a few key decisions. What was I actually trying to emulate in Richard's work, and why copy another artist? The biggest benefit of copying another artist's work was to hopefully eliminate the guesswork and just follow along and dedicate myself to improving my brush skills. So where was I trying to eliminate the guesswork? Namely, it was color choice, highlight and shadow placement, and smoothness of transitions. So let's start with color. Richard posted a paint list, so I was confident that I started with similar colors, but when I applied them, they just looked too different from the pictures. So either I wasn't applying the paint in the same way, or mixing the paint properly, or there was something lost in digital transition. Namely, how much variance was there from the lighting from the picture to the lighting from my painting desk. And as I thought about this more, I realized this was the root of my initial frustrations. I wasn't making informed decisions on when to apply certain color and how to apply them. Do I layer or glaze, and do I work with highlights, midtones, or shadows? Because I didn't have an identical outcome in mind, it was impossible for me to get the same result. So I had to table the expectation that I could make the colors look the same. So with that peace of mind, I figured I'd follow along with the highlight and shadow placement across the model. And this is where my appreciation for Richard's work really took shape. Painting the spaces between Dante's abs was something I know I never would have thought of myself, but makes sense when you understand the highly reflective nature of metal. Another area of appreciation was the level of care that was put into all the dimensions of the model. The best area to show this is Dante's big toe. All three sides of it are painted from nearly black to a bright highlight. Because I was no longer as concerned about matching the colors exactly, I traced the midtones and added highlights across the majority of the model. And this was the point I ran into another major snag. It just looked off to me. I'm not one to question Richard's piece, so I figured I had messed up somewhere. This led me to overanalyze once again. But then the aha moment hit me. Richard altered the pose slightly on his piece. He pitched Dante up on his left toe more. So this shifted where all the highlights should be placed. So now I couldn't follow along exactly on highlight placement. This wasn't a huge concern because it still looked pretty close, but realizing this helped me when it came to consistency of the lighting as I moved forward. Now the last thing I wanted to emulate, smoothness. And this is where I had to truly make a decision. How motivated was I to pour dozens of hours into a single miniature to perfect every blend? And at least for now, I wasn't able to commit to that. So I made the conscious decision to get the whole model to 90%, and then I could decide where I wanted to refine. And now I was ready to push ahead. It's also obvious that Richard didn't ever finish his piece, so from here on I had to make some of my own decisions on how I wanted the piece to end up. The biggest decision was that I wanted to continue the spot color of my personal Blood Angels army, which is a fluorescent / bright green. So the axis power source would be green instead of the traditional blue. And because of this, I wanted the secondary reflections across the model as magenta instead of the orange that Richard chose. Why magenta? Because I love it, and green and magenta / red are complementary colors of green. So yeah, that's my attempt at color theory. Moving on to the axe and really the rest of the steel components of the model, as well as the undersuit, I started from a base of Payne's Gray by Pro Creel and added in ice yellow to varying degrees. Anything that was sharper, or like the axe here, I went up to pure ice yellow, whereas the undersuit, I kept it more subdued. Again, these are the like cool parts of the model, so I want to make sure that they're a little bit understated so they don't take away from the warmer components like the armor. So this might be the only non-metallic metal axe I've ever painted, but from what I can tell, you want to have one major reflection, one bigger one, which I chose to do right near the power source, and then some smaller, I would say more random reflections that you can put in there, and then get each of the edges, so the cutting edge and then the beveled edge, make sure that those are bright as well. And excuse the blurriness of this, but I traced in the lightning components with ice yellow before coming in with fluorescent green. Now this is the point where I got to do something that was unique just to me. As I looked at this green, it seemed a little bit too unbalanced, so I had to add it to the other side. And for whatever reason, this just seemed to balance my eyes. I wasn't just staring at the axe the whole time. Now to do my favorite part of the whole model, the red shoulder pads. So this recipe is directly from Richard Gray's tutorials, and I was a little bit skeptical at first. I've never mixed red with the ice yellow, but I figured that was my universal highlight color, so I just try it and find out. So the first part here was to set the main halo, the main part of the reflection. I have this on the most upward facing, and then I trace the bottom line here, which is the secondary reflection of the red. Adding a little bit more Evil Sun Scarlet inside the initial base coat, and then gradually adding a little bit of ice yellow to it. Now, if you're like me, this looks way off. Looks way too bright. It's not even red anymore. But as I let it dry and I blended it back in, I was blown away with how awesome it looked. So now I'm just going to add this a little bit to the secondary reflections. Little dots, little points of light, little pings. So for this, I'm working at about 50% ice yellow to Evil Sun Scarlet. I'm just trying to get the final little points of highlights here, little bright spots. Now I'm coming in with almost pure ice yellow. I'm only going to hit this on the very upward facing points. So from here, just going to use a little bit of Mephiston red to kind of bring it all back to a little bit more of a red and just blend it back. So a little back and forth here. But overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. So I'm liking where this is going. I can start to move on to the other details. You can see here with the head and the jetpack on that I've completed it to varying degrees. The jetpack doesn't have any of the magenta in it, so you can see the the basic chunky highlights I did. At least for me, this is how I prefer to paint, where I can get the basics down and then add more color depth from here. Now we're close. We're about to that 90% that I first said I was going to get to. And I've used the airbrush here and I've glazed in some magenta and some dark brown into the gold armor. You can see a vast difference in the richness of it. So from here, I'm just going to look through each part of the model and add any final touches I want to put to it. Gotta refine some of the darker highlights, some of that with the magenta. I'm going to add a little bit of a spot highlight in some of the darker areas, but looking for maximum impact at this point. And from here, I don't really know how much farther I'm going to go. I could spend a lot more time refining every little detail, but I am very happy with how it looks right now, and any vast amount of time is probably not going to be time well spent for me. So I ended up spending another couple hours just going over the model, giving it nice little love touches, and here I am doing that final black rim. And man, I'm grateful I pushed through this. This has been a tough model for me, a tough video to put out, but in the end, I'm happy I powered through and I didn't give up. If there's any times you've been challenged, if you've tried to emulate somebody, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And here is the final result. Do I regret this whole project? Absolutely not. I gained a lot more appreciation for one of my favorite artists, and I was forced to grow as a painter. Is this a perfect piece? No. But I am very happy that I persevered and eventually got to the end with something I'm very proud of. Happy painting, and I'll see you in the next one.